The Kepler 442 system burned with the light of war. For 3 long years, 6 alien species had fought each other in the darkness of space. Their weapons lit up the void like deadly fireworks that never stopped exploding. Ships the size of cities crashed into each other while smaller fighters danced between them like angry wasps. Admiral Catherine Brooks stood on the bridge of the HSS Dominion and watched the battle through her screens. The human fleet had been hiding at the edge of the system for weeks. They watched and learned while the aliens killed each other over rocks that contained rare metals. Brooks was a tall woman with gray hair and cold blue eyes. She had fought in 12 battles across the galaxy and never lost a single one. The aliens called themselves many names. The Vorthek looked like giant lizards with sharp teeth and scales that changed color when they got angry. They flew ships shaped like spears and loved to fight more than anything else. The Zeth were like giant bugs that thought with one shared mind. Their ships looked like metal hives and moved in perfect formation. The Shard people were made of living crystal that sang when they talked. Their vessels were clear and beautiful but carried weapons that could cut through anything. The Nebula Syndicate were clouds of gas that somehow learned to think. They lived in ships that looked like floating soap bubbles but were tougher than steel. The Mesh Coalition had replaced most of their bodies with machines. Their geometric ships moved like clockwork and calculated every move before they made it. The Tide Republic came from water worlds and looked like walking fish. Their ships were round and smooth like pearls. All 6 species wanted the same thing. The neutronium deposits in this system were the rarest metals in the galaxy. Whoever controlled them would become rich beyond imagination. So they fought and died and fought some more. Their war had already destroyed 2 planets and killed millions of beings. Captain Jake Morrison walked up to Admiral Brooks with a datapad in his hands. Morrison was a big man with dark skin and a beard that was starting to turn gray. He had served with Brooks for 8 years and knew her better than anyone else on the ship. His face was serious as he handed her the latest battle reports. "Admiral, the aliens just brought in their biggest fleets yet," Morrison said quietly. "Over 3,000 ships are gathering around the gas giant. This is going to be the largest battle we have seen." Brooks took the datapad and studied the numbers. Her expression never changed, but Morrison saw her jaw tighten slightly. That was the only sign that she was thinking hard about something important. Commander Lisa Chen turned from her tactical station. Chen was young for her rank, but had studied alien warfare for most of her adult life. She could predict what enemy fleets would do before their own commanders knew. Her black hair was pulled back in a tight bun and her dark eyes never missed anything. "Admiral, they are positioning for a final battle. Whoever wins this fight will control the entire system," she reported. Brooks nodded slowly. She had been waiting for this moment. The human fleet had 12 massive dreadnoughts that were bigger than anything the aliens had ever built. Each one carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Behind them waited 48 destroyers that were faster than anything in space. Hundreds of smaller ships filled the spaces between the big ones. Every human vessel was equipped with technology that the aliens had never seen before. Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Hayes stood near the back of the bridge. Hayes commanded the Marine forces on every ship in the fleet. He was a short man with scars on his face from fighting on distant worlds. His soldiers were ready to board alien ships if needed. They had studied the layout of every alien vessel type and knew exactly how to fight each species in close combat. Hayes checked his watch and looked at the Admiral. He knew something big was about to happen. Dr. Elena Rodriguez sat at the science station with headphones over her ears. Rodriguez was the chief expert on alien biology and cultures. She had spent years learning how different species thought and communicated. Right now she was listening to alien radio traffic from the battle. The sounds were strange and beautiful and terrifying all at once. She could understand what they were saying to each other, and none of it was good. "The Vorthak are calling for honor death," Rodriguez said without looking up from her instruments. "The Zeth hive mind is calculating victory probabilities. The Shards are singing battle hymns. They all think this fight will end the war." She pulled off her headphones and turned to face Brooks. "Admiral, they have no idea we are here. Our stealth systems are working perfectly." Brooks walked to the center of the bridge and looked at the main screen. The battle was getting worse by the minute. Alien ships exploded in bright flashes while others fired weapons that could be seen from light years away. The space around the gas giant was filled with debris and radiation. Soon there would be nothing left but wreckage and corpses floating in the void. "Captain Morrison," Brooke said in her calm voice that never changed no matter how bad things got. "Signal all ships in the fleet. Prepare for immediate action." Morrison nodded and began sending orders through the communication system. On every human ship, crews ran to their battle stations. Weapons that had been charging for weeks were brought to full power. Engines that could push ships faster than light hummed with deadly energy. The alien fleets had no idea what was coming. They were too busy trying to kill each other to notice the new signals appearing on the edge of their sensors. The Vorthak were ramming their spear ships into Zeth hives while crystal weapons from the shards cut through both fleets. Nebula clouds were wrapping around mesh geometric ships and crushing them slowly. Tide Republic Pearl vessels fired water cannons that could punch holes through armor. Admiral Brooks raised her hand and the entire bridge fell silent. Every officer stopped what they were doing and looked at her. Morrison stood ready to relay her orders. Chen had her finger over the weapons control. Hayes was already putting on his combat gear. Rodriguez was recording everything for history. The moment that would change the galaxy forever was about to begin. "Execute Protocol 7, Brooks said quietly. Her voice was so calm that she might have been ordering coffee instead of unleashing the most powerful weapons ever created. Morrison repeated the order into his headset, and within seconds every ship in the human fleet received the same command. Protocol 7 was something the aliens had never seen and would never forget. The human ships dropped their stealth fields all at once. Suddenly, over 300 vessels appeared on every alien sensor in the system. The aliens had been fighting each other for so long that they had forgotten to watch for new threats. Now they found themselves staring at a fleet that was bigger and more advanced than anything they had ever imagined. But the humans did not wait for the aliens to react. Every human ship fired at exactly the same moment. The quantum disruptor weapons were completely silent, but their effect was immediate and terrifying. Beams of energy that looked like twisted space itself reached out and touched alien vessels across the entire battle zone. When the beams hit their targets, the alien ships simply stopped existing. It was not like normal weapons that exploded or burned or tore things apart. The quantum disruptors made matter forget how to hold itself together. Alien ships that had been solid metal and crystal and living tissue 1 second became clouds of basic atoms the next second. 3,000 alien warships turned into quantum dust in 90 seconds. Not one human ship fired a second shot. The silence that followed was complete. No more weapons fire lit up the space around the gas giant. No more radio chatter filled the communication channels. No more ships moved in the darkness. The greatest battle in the history of the Kepler 442 system was over, and the humans had ended it without losing a single vessel or even taking damage, Admiral. Brooks looked at her tactical display and saw empty space where moments before 3,000 alien ships had been fighting the largest battle of their lives. Commander Chen checked her sensors 3 times to make sure they were working correctly. Captain Morrison stared at the main screen with his mouth slightly open. Even Lieutenant Colonel Hayes, who had seen terrible things in ground combat, was shocked by how quickly it was over. Dr. Rodriguez was the first to speak. "Admiral, I am detecting massive electromagnetic interference from the gas giant. The alien mining stations and research outposts are trying to contact their fleets, but they are getting no response. They do not understand what happened to their ships." Her voice was quiet and full of amazement at what she had just witnessed. Brooks nodded but did not smile. She knew that this was only the beginning. The aliens would need time to understand what had happened and decide what to do next. Some would want to fight. Others would want to run. A few might be smart enough to listen. The next few hours would determine whether this system would know peace or if the killing would continue. "Maintain position," Brooks ordered. "All ships hold current formation and monitor all frequencies. Do not respond to any communication attempts until I give the order." She walked back to her command chair and sat down. The hardest part was still ahead of them. It was easy to destroy an enemy fleet. It was much harder to build a lasting peace. 30 minutes passed in complete silence. The human fleet held its position near the gas giant while alien outposts throughout the system tried to understand what had happened to their fleets. Emergency signals filled the radio frequencies as mining stations and research bases called for help that would never come. Admiral Brooks sat in her command chair and listened to the panic in alien voices through her translator systems. Dr. Rodriguez pulled off her headphones and turned to face the Admiral. Her face was pale and her hands were shaking slightly. "Admiral, they are terrified," she said quietly. "The Vorthak commanders are demanding to know who destroyed their honor fleet." The Zeth hive mind is calculating threat levels that break their mathematics. The shards are singing funeral songs for ships that simply vanished. Captain Morrison checked his watch and looked at Brooks. He knew the Admiral was waiting for the right moment to make contact. Too soon and the aliens might think the humans were weak. Too late and fear might drive them to do something desperate. Brooks had timed military operations perfectly for 20 years, and Morrison trusted her judgment completely. Commander Chen was monitoring alien communications across the entire system. Her tactical screens showed the locations of every remaining alien vessel and outpost. Most were military supply ships that had been far from the battle. Others were civilian research stations and mining platforms. A few were command bases hidden in asteroid fields and behind moons. All of them were trying to contact fleets that no longer existed. Lieutenant Colonel Hayes stood near the Marine deployment stations and watched his soldiers prepare for possible boarding operations. His men and women were ready to take control of alien ships if the situation required it. They had trained for months in simulated alien environments and knew exactly how to fight each species in their own ships. Hayes hoped it would not come to that, but his Marines were prepared for anything. Admiral Brooks finally stood up from her command chair. She walked to the communication station and looked at the officer sitting there. Lieutenant Sarah Kim was the best communication specialist in the fleet. She could send messages across the galaxy, or hack into alien computer systems with equal skill. Kim had been waiting for this moment since the fleet first entered the system. Lieutenant Kim opened a channel to all alien forces in the system, Brooks said in her calm voice. All frequencies, all languages, maximum broadcast power. Kim nodded and began working at her console. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls as she prepared to send a message that would reach every alien within 50 light-years of their position. The bridge fell completely, silent as every officer waited to hear what the Admiral would say. Morrison stood ready to coordinate fleet movements if needed. Chen had her weapon systems ready to fire if any alien vessel tried to attack. Hayes was prepared to deploy Marines at a moment's notice. Rodriguez was recording everything for the history books. This message would be remembered for centuries. Broadcasting now, Admiral, Lieutenant Kim reported. The main screen showed a signal strength indicator that confirmed the message was reaching every corner of the system. On alien ships and stations throughout Kepler 442, communication officers suddenly heard a voice speaking in perfect versions of their own languages. The translation was so accurate that many aliens thought one of their own people was talking. I am Fleet Admiral Catherine Brooks of the Terran Federation Navy, the Admiral began. Her voice was steady and carried the weight of absolute authority. You have 96 hours to cease all military operations in this system and withdraw your forces beyond the heliopause. Any vessel that remains after this deadline will be considered hostile and will be dealt with accordingly. This is your only warning. The message was short and simple, but it hit the alien commanders like a physical blow. On the Vorthak command station orbiting the third planet, General Krath listened to the words and felt his scales turn dark with rage. The Vorthak had never retreated from any battle in their long history. Their honor code demanded that enemies be fought until death or victory, but Krath had seen his entire fleet disappear in 90 seconds. Krath was a massive creature even by Vorthak standards. His scales were deep red with black stripes that marked him as a veteran of many wars. Scars covered his arms and face from battles fought with blade and claw before he became a fleet commander. His yellow eyes burned with fury as he listened to the human ultimatum, but his tactical mind was already calculating the odds of survival. In the asteroid belt, the Zeth Collective's mobile hive ship buzzed with the sound of a million insect voices discussing the message. Queen Mind Azura was the central intelligence that controlled the thoughts of every Zeth in the system. Her consciousness existed in a chamber filled with glowing neural fluid, while her thoughts moved through the minds of her children at the speed of light. The Zeth made every decision based on mathematical probability and logic. Azura's calculations showed a 99.7% chance that fighting the humans would result in complete extinction for her species in this system. The quantum weapons had eliminated 3,000 ships without any visible effort. Logic demanded withdrawal, but the warrior caste among her children was calling for vengeance against the beings who had destroyed their fleet. On the crystalline world orbiting the system's outer star, Shard Prime Crystal Aurora felt the human message as vibrations through her body. The shards communicated through harmonic frequencies that could travel through solid matter, as easily as through air. Aurora was ancient even by shard standards, and had lived through 17 different wars. Her crystal body was clear as diamond, but shot through with veins of silver that marked her as a leader. The Shard Confederacy had weapons that could cut through any known material by matching its harmonic frequency and causing it to shatter, but their scientists had been studying the quantum disruptor beams and could not understand how they worked. The human weapons operated on principles that the shards had never encountered. Fighting an enemy with unknown technology was extremely dangerous. High above the gas giant's North Pole, the Nebula Syndicate's command cloud drifted in space like a living storm. The gaseous beings had no solid form, but their collective intelligence was vast and ancient. They communicated through electromagnetic pulses that looked like lightning between gas molecules. The Syndicate had been trading with other species for thousands of years, and understood the value of avoiding fights they could not win. In the inner system, the Mesh Coalition's geometric command ship calculated response options with mechanical precision. The cybernetic beings had replaced most of their organic parts with computers and machines. They thought in terms of efficiency and resource management. Fighting the humans would require enormous resources with minimal chance of success. Their logical programming demanded the most efficient course of action. Near the fourth planet's largest moon, the Tide Republic's flagship floated like a giant pearl in space. Ambassador Reefsinger was the most experienced diplomat in the Republic's government. Her people were naturally peaceful and preferred negotiation to warfare. The fish-like being had gills that fluttered with nervousness as she considered the human ultimatum. Dr. Rodriguez monitored the alien responses as they came in over the next several hours. The communication patterns told her a great deal about how each species was reacting to the human demands. Some aliens were broadcasting frantically to their home governments. Others were conducting emergency military conferences. A few were already beginning to move their ships toward the edge of the system. "Admiral, the Tide Republic is requesting permission to establish diplomatic contact," Rodriguez reported. "Their message indicates willingness to negotiate withdrawal terms." Brooks nodded but did not respond immediately. She wanted to see how all 6 species would react before engaging in any diplomatic discussions. Commander Chen was tracking the movement of every alien vessel in the system. Her sensors could detect ships trying to hide behind planets or in asteroid fields. The human technology was so advanced that stealth was virtually impossible. Any alien ship that tried to sneak up on the human fleet would be detected long before it could get within weapons range. "Several Vorthak vessels are taking aggressive positions," Chen reported. "They appear to be preparing for a possible attack run." Brooks was not surprised. The reptilian species was known for their warrior culture and hatred of showing weakness. It would take more than words to convince them that retreat was their only option for survival. Captain Morrison approached the Admiral with new intelligence reports. Human spy satellites throughout the system were intercepting alien communications and providing detailed information about enemy intentions. The data showed that most species were divided between those who wanted to fight and those who wanted to flee. Only time would tell which group would win the argument. "Admiral, we are receiving response signals from all 6 species," Lieutenant Kim announced. "Most are requesting clarification of terms. The Zeth are asking about civilian populations. The Mesh want to know if trade agreements will be affected. The Shards are inquiring about mining rights." Brooks listened to each question but decided to maintain her position of strength through silence. Lieutenant Colonel Hayes checked the status of his Marine battalion. 60 hours had passed since Admiral Brooks delivered her ultimatum to the alien forces in the Kepler 442 system. Most species were still debating their response, but the humans could see movement beginning throughout the system. Some alien ships were already heading toward the outer boundaries, while others were taking defensive positions. The Vorthak Empire had remained ominously quiet during this time. General Krath stood in the command center of his fortress station, orbiting the 3rd planet. The massive Vorthak leader had spent the last 2 days in heated discussions with his war council. His scaled fists were clenched as he stared at the tactical display showing the human fleet's position. Every instinct in his warrior soul demanded that he test these humans who dared to give orders to the mighty Vorthak Empire. The Vorthak honor code was simple and absolute. A warrior who retreated without fighting was no warrior at all. A commander who surrendered to threats was worse than dead. Krath had built his reputation on never backing down from any enemy, no matter how powerful they seemed. His scales shifted from red to deep purple as anger and determination filled his massive frame. "Prepare the Bloodfang for immediate departure," Krath ordered his communications officer. The cruiser was one of the few Vorthak ships that had not been in the main battle when the humans arrived. It was fast and well armed with the best weapons his people could build. If the humans wanted to prove their strength, they would have to do it again under more controlled circumstances. Captain Tony Martinez was commanding the destroyer HSS Thunderbolt when his sensors detected movement from the Vorthak positions. Martinez was a veteran officer who had served in border conflicts for 15 years. His ship was smaller than the massive dreadnoughts, but it was fast and heavily armed. The Thunderbolt had been assigned to patrol the approaches to the human fleet. "Captain, I have one Vorthak cruiser breaking orbit from the third planet," reported Lieutenant Davis from the sensor station. Davis was young but had excellent eyes for reading tactical displays. "The vessel appears to be heading in our general direction but not on a direct intercept course." Martinez studied his own screens and saw the alien ship moving slowly through space. On the bridge of the HSS Dominion, Commander Chen immediately detected the Vorthak ship's movement. Her tactical systems had been monitoring every alien vessel in the system since the human fleet's arrival. The computer automatically calculated threat levels and projected courses for any moving targets. The approaching cruiser set off multiple warning alerts on her console. "Admiral, we have a Vorthak cruiser approaching our perimeter," Chen reported to Brooks. "Preliminary scans show standard armament, but I am also detecting something unusual." She paused to run deeper scans through the ship's advanced sensor array. "The vessel appears to be carrying additional nuclear warheads beyond normal loadout." Admiral Brooks was not surprised by the Vorthak probe. She had been expecting one of the warrior species to test human resolve before the deadline expired. The reptilian aliens were proud and aggressive by nature. They would need a more direct demonstration of human capabilities before they would accept the reality of their situation. Dr. Rodriguez was monitoring Vorthak communications as the cruiser approached. Her translation equipment was picking up coded military signals between the ship and General Krath's command station. The messages were encrypted, but human computers could break most alien codes within minutes. What she learned made her pale with concern. "Admiral, the Vorthak are calling this a diplomatic mission, but their internal communications tell a different story," Rodriguez reported. "They refer to it as an honor probe to test human reactions. The ship is definitely carrying nuclear weapons and has orders to engage if they detect any weakness in our response." Captain Morrison approached Admiral Brooks with additional intelligence from their spy satellites. The human surveillance network had detected 3 more Vorthak vessels moving into position behind one of the system's larger moons. These ships were using primitive stealth technology to hide their signatures, but human sensors were far too advanced to be fooled by such simple methods. "We have 3 stealth frigates in the asteroid belt," Morrison informed the Admiral. "They are positioned to support the cruiser if fighting breaks out. It appears General Krath is conducting a coordinated test of our defenses rather than a simple diplomatic approach." Brooks nodded as she studied the tactical situation developing around her fleet. The Vorthak cruiser Bloodfang continued its approach toward the human fleet. Captain Scartooth commanded the vessel with typical Vorthak aggression. His scales were battle-scarred from years of boarding actions and close combat. The nuclear warheads in his cargo bay were insurance against human treachery. If the humans proved to be weak, he would destroy them. If they proved to be strong, he would die with honor. Lieutenant Colonel Hayes was preparing his Marines for possible boarding operations when the alert came through. His soldiers immediately moved to combat stations and began checking their equipment. Human Marines carried weapons specifically designed for fighting Vorthak warriors in the close quarters of starship corridors. They also had detailed maps of Vorthak ship layouts downloaded from intercepted technical manuals. Admiral Brooks waited until the Vorthak cruiser was well within weapons range before taking action. She wanted General Krath to understand that humans could detect threats long before they became dangerous. More importantly, she wanted to demonstrate the precision and restraint that separated human military doctrine from alien approaches to warfare. Open a direct channel to General Krath. Then Brooks ordered Lieutenant Kim at the communications station. The message would be transmitted to the Vorthak command station, as well as to the approaching cruiser. Every alien in the system would be able to monitor the conversation and learn from what happened next. The channel opened with a brief burst of static before Admiral Brooks began speaking in perfect Vorthak military language. Her pronunciation was flawless, and her use of formal military terms showed deep understanding of their culture. General Krath's eyes widened with surprise as he realized the humans had learned his language better than most of his own officers spoke it. General Krath, I am aware that the Bloodfang is carrying 6 tactical nuclear warheads in addition to its standard armament, Brooks said calmly. I am also aware that you have positioned 3 stealth frigates in the asteroid belt as backup. You have 30 seconds to withdraw all 4 vessels, or I will demonstrate why that was an unwise decision. The silence that followed was tense and complete. On the Vorthak command station, General Krath's War Council stared at their displays in shock. The humans had detected weapons and ships that were supposed to be completely hidden. Their intelligence capabilities were far beyond anything the Vorthak had imagined possible. General Krath's pride would not let him back down immediately. He had committed himself to this test of human resolve, and retreating without seeing their response would mark him as a coward in front of his subordinates. The massive reptilian commander counted the seconds as they ticked by, knowing that his decision would affect the fate of his entire species in this system. 31 seconds passed before Admiral Brooks nodded to Commander Chen. The tactical officer activated a targeting system so precise it could identify individual components on alien ships from thousands of miles away. A single quantum disruptor beam, calibrated to minimum power, reached out across space toward the approaching Vorthak cruiser. The beam struck the Bloodfang's primary weapons array with surgical precision. In less than a second, every major weapon on the ship simply ceased to exist at the molecular level. The nuclear warheads remained untouched. The engines continued working normally. The life support systems were completely unaffected. Only the weapons had been selectively destroyed. At the same moment, 3 electromagnetic pulse weapons fired from different human ships toward the asteroid belt. The pulses were carefully tuned to overload the specific frequency signatures of Vorthak stealth technology. The 3 hidden frigates suddenly appeared on every sensor in the system as their cloaking devices failed completely. Captain Scartooth stared at his weapon status display in complete disbelief. Every single gun on his ship showed as non-functional, but his engineers reported no explosions or fires. The weapons had not been destroyed in any way he could understand. They had simply stopped existing as if they had never been built in the first place, Admiral. Brooks opened the communication channel again as General Krath, and his officers struggled to comprehend what they had witnessed. Her voice remained perfectly calm, as if nothing unusual had happened. The demonstration of precision and restraint was more frightening than any display of raw destructive power could have been. I have disabled your weapons, not destroyed your ships, Brooks continued. Your crews are unharmed. Your vessels remain functional for withdrawal purposes. You have 24 hours remaining to comply with evacuation orders. I will not be so precise with my next demonstration if further testing becomes necessary. The message was clear and unmistakable. The humans could have destroyed all 4 Vorthak ships as easily as they had eliminated the alien fleets during the Great Battle. Instead, they had chosen to demonstrate their precision and give the reptilians another chance to MI. 90 hours had passed since Admiral Brooks delivered her ultimatum to the alien forces in the Kepler 442 system. Only 6 hours remained until the deadline expired, and the human fleet would be forced to take more aggressive action. The demonstration against the Vorthak ships had convinced some species to begin their withdrawal, but others remained stubbornly in place. The Nebula Syndicate was the first to acknowledge human superiority and begin formal withdrawal procedures. Their gaseous beings existed as sentient clouds of charged particles that communicated through electromagnetic frequencies. The decision to retreat had been made collectively by billions of individual gas molecules voting through electrical impulses. Captain Morrison watched the Syndicate ships on his tactical display as they began their slow journey toward the edge of the system. The alien vessels looked like giant soap bubbles floating through space, but their hulls were actually composed of force fields containing compressed gas. Their movement was graceful and peaceful, like clouds drifting across a summer sky. Admiral, the Nebula Syndicate is transmitting their departure schedule, reported Lieutenant Kim from the communications station. They estimate complete withdrawal will take 18 hours due to the slow speed of their propulsion systems. They are requesting safe passage guarantees for their civilian population centers. Brooks nodded and authorized the safe passage request without hesitation. The Mesh Coalition followed the Syndicate's example within the next hour. Their cybernetic hive mind had calculated that resistance would result in 100% casualties, while withdrawal would preserve their forces for future opportunities. The geometric ships of the Coalition began folding space around themselves as they prepared to jump to distant star. Systems Commander Chen tracked the Coalition's movements on her sensors as their ships performed impossible maneuvers that defied normal physics. The cybernetic beings had mastered space-folding technology that allowed them to travel vast distances almost instantly. Their withdrawal would be complete within hours rather than days. Dr. Rodriguez was monitoring the Tide Republic's communications when Ambassador Reefsinger requested a direct channel to Admiral Brooks. The fish-like diplomat had been chosen specifically for her ability to communicate with other species. Her people were naturally peaceful and had joined the war only to protect their waterworld colonies in the outer system. Admiral Brooks, I am Ambassador Reefsinger of the Tide Republic. The alien diplomat began in surprisingly good human English. My government wishes to formally apologize for our intrusion into this system. We had no knowledge of human claims to these territories. We request permission to establish formal diplomatic contact in the future. Admiral Brooks was impressed by the Tide Republic's diplomatic approach. Most species had either tried to fight or simply fled without communication. The amphibian beings were showing wisdom and respect that suggested they would be valuable allies in the future. Her response was brief but encouraging. Ambassador Reefsinger, your request is acknowledged and approved, Brooks replied. Contact the Terran Embassy on Proxima Station in 6 months' time. We will discuss formal diplomatic relations at that time. Safe travels to you and your people. The exchange was broadcast throughout the system as an example of how cooperation could benefit all parties. As the hours passed, it became clear that two species remained determined to stay in the system, despite the human ultimatum. General Krath's Vorthak Empire had been silent since their failed honor probe. The crystalline beings of the Shard Confederacy were conducting complex mathematical calculations to determine if their resonance weapons might be effective against human quantum technology. Lieutenant Colonel Hayes received new deployment orders as the deadline approached. His Marine battalions loaded into assault shuttles and prepared for what military doctrine called aggressive boarding procedures. Each Marine carried weapons designed specifically for close quarters combat against the known physiologies of the remaining alien species. The Marines had trained extensively in simulated alien ship environments. They knew the layout of Vorthak spearships and Shard crystal vessels. They understood how to fight reptilian warriors in narrow corridors and how to disable crystalline beings without shattering their bodies. Hayes was confident his soldiers could capture any alien vessel in the system within hours. Shard Prime Crystal. Aurora stood in the harmonic chamber of her flagship and felt the vibrations of her people's fear resonating through the crystalline hull. Her species communicated through sound frequencies that could travel through solid matter as easily as through air. The mathematics of their scientists had revealed disturbing possibilities about human weapons technology. The Shard Confederacy possessed weapons that could destroy any target by matching its harmonic frequency and causing catastrophic resonance failure. Mountains could be shattered, starships could be broken apart, and even planets could be cracked like eggs. But their analysis of the quantum disruptor beams showed that human weapons operated on principles beyond their understanding. Aurora's crystal body was ancient and beautiful, clear as diamond but shot through with veins of silver that marked her as a leader among her people. She had lived through 17 different wars and had never encountered an enemy that her scientists could not analyze. The human technology was completely alien to everything the Shards thought they knew about physics. With 2 hours remaining until the deadline, Admiral Brooks made a system-wide announcement that was broadcast on all frequencies in every known language. Her voice carried the weight of absolute authority as she delivered what would be the final warning to the remaining alien forces. To all remaining military forces in the Kepler 442 system, you now have 2 hours to begin withdrawal procedures, Brooks announced. Any vessel that has not initiated departure protocols when this deadline expires will be boarded and its crew detained as prisoners of war under Terran military law. This is your final opportunity to avoid that outcome. The message had immediate effects throughout the system. On monitoring stations and research outposts, alien civilians began broadcasting desperate pleas to their military commanders. They understood that their protection fleets were either gone or about to be captured. The prospect of living under human occupation terrified some species, while others seemed curious about these powerful newcomers. General Krath stood alone on the bridge of his command station and watched his tactical displays show the approaching human deadline. His honor guard waited silently behind him, their scaled hands resting on ceremonial weapons that would be useless against human technology. The massive reptilian commander had to choose between his warrior pride and the survival of his people. The Vorthak honor code demanded that warriors fight to the death rather than surrender to superior force. But Krath had seen what human weapons could do to entire fleets. His honor probe had demonstrated that the humans could destroy or disable any Vorthak vessel without difficulty. Fighting them would not be a glorious battle, but a meaningless massacre. In the final 30 minutes before the deadline, Shard Prime Crystal Aurora made the decision that would save her entire species from destruction. Her harmonic calculations had revealed the complete futility of resistance against an enemy whose technology operated beyond the known laws of physics. Mathematical truth demanded logical action regardless of pride or tradition. Attention all vessels of the Shard Confederacy. Aurora's voice rang like silver bells through the communication systems of her fleet. Begin immediate withdrawal from the Kepler 442 system. Set course for the Vega colonies and maintain peaceful formations. We shall remember this day and learn from what we have witnessed here. The Shard vessels began their withdrawal with a sound like 1,000 wind chimes singing in harmony. Their crystalline hulls caught and reflected the light of the system's star as they activated their exotic propulsion systems. The sight was beautiful and sad at the same time, like watching butterflies flee from an approaching storm. Commander Chen tracked the Shard departure on her tactical displays and noted the elegant efficiency of their movement. The crystalline beings had obviously planned their withdrawal carefully and were executing it with mathematical precision. Their ships moved in perfect formation toward the edge of the system without any sign of panic or disorder. General Krath watched the Shard fleet depart and felt the weight of isolation settle on his scaled shoulders. The Vorthak Empire now stood alone against the human ultimatum, with less than 15 minutes remaining until the deadline expired. His communication officer looked at him with barely concealed fear while his tactical officers waited for orders that might doom them all. The silence in the Vorthak command center was broken only by the soft beeping of countdown timers and the quiet breathing of nervous soldiers. Krath's yellow eyes stared at the display showing human ships in perfect formation around the gas giant. Their weapons were powered but not targeted, showing confidence and restraint that impressed even the proud general. Lieutenant Colonel Hayes checked his watch and saw that 5 minutes remained until the deadline. His Marines were strapped into their assault shuttles and ready to launch at a moment's notice. The boarding plan called for simultaneous attacks on 6 different Vorthak vessels, including 97 hours after the human fleet arrived in the Kepler 442 system. Complete silence fell across the battlefield for the first time in 3 years. The last Vorthak transport had crossed the heliopause boundary and disappeared into deep space. Admiral Brooks stood on the bridge of the HSS Dominion and watched her tactical displays confirm what seemed impossible just days before. Captain Morrison approached with the final status report that would be transmitted to Earth. His face showed a mixture of relief and amazement at how quickly the situation had been resolved. All alien military vessels have cleared the system boundary, Admiral. The Kepler 442 system is now under complete human control without a single casualty on either side. Brooks nodded and began issuing new orders to establish a permanent human presence in the system. The war was over, but the work of building peace was just beginning. Monitoring stations would need to be constructed throughout the system to ensure that the conflict did not restart. Communication networks would have to be established to maintain contact with the departing alien species. Deploy construction teams to begin building monitoring stations at key locations, Brooks ordered. Each station will broadcast a standard message in all 6 alien languages, stating that this system is under Terran protection and military incursions are prohibited. The message would serve as both a warning and a promise to any species that might consider returning to restart the war. Dr. Rodriguez brought Admiral Brooks a more complex challenge that would test human principles in the days ahead. Thousands of alien civilians remained scattered throughout the system on mining stations, research outposts, and small colonies. These non-combatants had families, established homes, and legitimate claims to the lives they had built over many years. The civilian populations included Zeth workers who maintained the automated mining equipment, Shard scientists studying the unique crystal formations in the asteroid belt, Tide Republic families who farmed the algae beds in the outer system, and even some Vorthak merchants who had been trading with other species despite the ongoing war. Admiral, we have approximately 15,000 alien civilians still in the system, Rodriguez reported as she reviewed the population data. Most are requesting permission to remain in their homes. They argue that they are non-combatants who should not be punished for the actions of their military forces. The situation required careful consideration of human values and long-term diplomatic goals. Admiral Brooks made a decision that would define humanity's reputation among the stars for generations to come. Rather than forcing civilian evacuation or establishing harsh occupation policies, she authorized the creation of humanitarian aid stations throughout the system. Human medical ships would provide assistance to any aliens who needed help, regardless of their species or previous allegiances. Begin immediate humanitarian operations. Brooks ordered Lieutenant Colonel Hayes, who had been reassigned from Marine combat operations to peacekeeping duties. I want medical teams, food distribution, and infrastructure repair crews working with alien civilians within 24 hours. These people have been caught in a war zone for 3 years and they need our help. Hayes nodded and began coordinating with the fleet's support vessels. Human engineering teams would help repair mining equipment damaged during the war. Medical personnel would treat injuries and illnesses that had gone untreated during the fighting. Food synthesizers would provide nutrition to populations whose supply lines had been disrupted by military operations. The sight of human vessels delivering aid to former enemies sent shockwaves through alien governments across the galaxy. Many species had expected conquest, exploitation, or at minimum hostile occupation of the valuable system. Instead, they witnessed something unprecedented in galactic history, a military victor that asked for nothing in return for their protection. Commander Chen established new sensor networks throughout the system to monitor space traffic and prevent the return of military forces. The advanced human detection systems could identify approaching ships from several light years away and determine their intentions before they entered the system. Any attempt to restart the war would be detected immediately. News. Reports from alien journalists who had been present during the conflict began spreading through galactic communication networks faster than light speed itself. The reports described human military capabilities that seemed impossible and human behavior that seemed too good to be true. Many alien leaders refused to believe the accounts until they were confirmed by their own intelligence services. On the Vorthak homeworld, General Krath faced a military tribunal to explain his retreat from the Kepler 442 system. The massive reptilian warrior stood before his superiors and provided detailed tactical analysis of human capabilities. His report would influence Vorthak military policy for centuries to come. The humans possess weapons that operate beyond our understanding of physics, Krath testified before the assembled War Council. They can destroy fleets or disable individual systems with equal precision. More importantly, they exercise restraint and show mercy to defeated enemies. My recommendation is clear. Do not engage the humans in warfare. Seek honorable peace instead. Queen Mind Azura's hive consciousness spent months processing the logical implications of human behavior through the interconnected thoughts of billions of Zeth drones. The insectoid species had built their entire civilization on mathematical optimization and efficiency calculations. The human actions in Kepler 442 challenged their fundamental assumptions about rational behavior. The Zeth ultimately reached a conclusion that would reshape their entire philosophical framework over the following decades. Their collective intelligence determined that true strength lay not in the ability to destroy enemies, but in the wisdom to choose when destruction was unnecessary. The concept of voluntary restraint became a new field of study for their scientists. 6 months after the end of the war, Admiral Brooks was preparing to rotate back to Earth when she received an unexpected communication from the Tide Republic. Ambassador Reefsinger had arrived at the edge of the system aboard a small diplomatic vessel and was requesting permission to enter for formal negotiations. The Meeting took place aboard the HSS Dominion in a conference room that had been modified to accommodate the amphibian diplomats' need for high humidity. Reef Singer's gills fluttered nervously as she presented her government's formal proposal for a mutual defense alliance between the Tide Republic and the Terran Federation. Admiral Brooks, my people have studied the events in this system very carefully, the fish-like diplomat began. We believe that humanity represents a new type of galactic power that our species can respect and trust. We would like to propose a formal alliance based on mutual protection and shared scientific research. The Tide Republic's proposal became the first of many similar offers that would arrive over the following months. Species across the galaxy had concluded that alliance with humanity offered better long-term prospects than opposition or neutrality. The demonstration of power combined with restraint had impressed governments that had survived. Through cautious diplomacy for centuries, Dr. Rodriguez established the first interspecies research facility in the system where alien and human scientists could collaborate on projects ranging from improved space propulsion to advanced medical techniques. The work conducted in these laboratories would benefit all participating species and demonstrate that cooperation yielded greater rewards than conquest. Lieutenant Colonel Hayes, now promoted to colonel, oversaw the training of a new type of Marine unit, peacekeepers trained in alien customs, languages, and cultural sensitivities. These soldiers represented humanity's commitment to protecting the weak and maintaining order without oppression or cultural destruction. The Kepler 442 system became the most peaceful region of space within 50 light-years of Earth. The human presence consisted of a single monitoring station, staffed by diplomatic personnel and a small security force. The reputation of human military power maintained stability more effectively than any army could have achieved. Alien civilians worked alongside human engineers to rebuild their war-torn homes and communities. Children of different species played together in parks that had been battlefields just months before. Trade resumed between former enemies as the prosperity of peace replaced the destruction of war. Admiral Brooks composed her final report to Terran Command as she prepared to transfer command to a smaller peacekeeping force. Her words were measured and professional, but they carried the weight of historical significance. The operation that had ended a 3-year war in 4 days would be studied by military strategists for generations. Mission accomplished, Brooks wrote in her report. The Kepler 442 system is secure and stable. All alien military forces have withdrawn beyond the heliopause as ordered. Civilian populations remain under humanitarian protection. No human casualties reported. Recommend establishing permanent diplomatic presence to monitor regional stability and coordinate interspecies cooperation. As the message transmitted toward Earth through the quantum communication network, Brooks reflected on the broader implications of their actions. 6 alien species now knew that humanity possessed overwhelming military superiority. More importantly, they had learned